Okay. Okay, week 7. All right. Can't believe it. We're here. So excited to just see the progression of all your projects. So as usual, I want to first share some updates. So today we're talking about matters of leadership, and I hope this will be a lively discussion, and I'll hopefully give you some pointers to think about as you're developing your projects. So first thing is first, so this past weekend, I've been working on our Usable Insights webpage. Okay, it's on the site. It used to be publications, just publication, and that was so boring. So updated it, called it Usable Insights. You can click on this now. It is active. And not only are these videos, so we brought in some of the YouTube videos there, you can also now search just a database of all our publications from all the members of SAI. So if you're looking for different databases or insights into outreach, one of our mentors right now, Pete Volbrecht, Dr. Pete Volbrecht, has published a whole bunch of articles on his work and what he's learned. So you can search for it and look it up. So that's the link right there. And let's see, yeah, so they're kind of broken up by length of video. So if you're doing a long walk, hiking, you can play the longer ones. If you're somewhat shorter, you're looking at cooking in the kitchen, play the Nano Chats, those are fun. If you're taking a quick shower in the bathroom or something, 35 minutes, you can squeeze it in there, or doing a quick drive. Anyway, they're all there. Hopefully it can ping into your availability. So the big thing today and this week's review was about matters of leadership. So Dr. Joanne came in last cohort to give a talk about this, and I really encourage you to watch it and then rewatch it, okay? Because it's that important that like with always, I listen to these things again with you guys live so that I can have these conversations with you. So I pulled out some key themes that I thought were interesting, and I'm really excited. I'm really kind of curious to get your thoughts and what struck out for you from her notes as well. Okay, but I'll tell you mine. Some questions that she asked: what is a good manager? These are things like as you're building, and in fact, even as graduate students, Mandy and others, like you don't get taught these things. Like, what is a good manager? You kind of absorb these through osmosis. And the question we are asking is, can you actually actively think about them ahead of time? And I think so. I really think so. So what is a good manager, right? And then she goes into distinguishing managing versus leading. And there is a difference, right? Managing where you're dealing with the now, and there tends to be things that are already set in stone. But things that there's an outline already. Someone's already figured out how to do something. They need someone to manage it, right? Versus a leader, where you're leading, where you're dealing with what could be. There is no road. There are no contours. There's no signposts. You got to figure it out, and you have to inspire people. And this is a key point. Inspire people to get there with you, and keep in mind that they can't see what you see. And that makes it really, really interesting as you're building your initiatives. What makes people happy? What makes team members really, really happy? And asking things like twice a year is not good enough for feedback. She brought this up as one of the slides. Twice a year is not good enough for feedback. I totally agree with that. She actually, in her talk, she talks about getting rid of the annual review completely, which I thought was fascinating to do, and in favor of continuous review, which can sound scary because like, oh my God, I'm always being reviewed. I'm like, yeah. Or having conversations about how can I be better? How can I improve? Better yet, what is the opportunity for improvement, right? Communication is essential. I've told you this already. She hits it right on the mark by saying that you gotta be able to communicate effectively about what it is that you want done, where it is that you're taking them or the organization. And you have to do this continuously. And I can tell you from experience, you will sound like a broken record. You will. But it is essential that you continue to articulate, re-articulate, reframing, and we've talked a lot about reframing things, and asking people, okay, I said X, what did you hear? Right? and then you'll be amazed what people tell you. They hear, you say X, they hear Y, all right? So asking and being able to go through that motion, I think is really, really critical. And Joanne brought up a really important point about culture matters, and you want to get started with this as early as possible. As you bring people to your initiative and project, you're going to start building a culture of people, right? The culture is made up of people. So you got to be very picky about the people you bring in, and also what kind of environment you're setting up, right? And people are going to follow you. They got to look at what you are doing, and more importantly, also what you're not doing. And they're going to emulate that. So you got to be clear about what you want, show them, and be that servant leader. And that's my personal style. Leading by promoting others. You forget everything that she talked about. Leading by promoting others. Leading by example. Leading with humanity. That these are people that are in your group. They're following you. They believe in what you're saying. And remember, you can't do it all by yourself. You really can't. You might go like quickly by yourself. Indeed, you know the quote. But if you want to go far, you got to bring in people. And you're not going to know everything. So this point on the side, you're not going to know everything. Right? And you're going to absolutely stumble. And the minute you feel like you know everything, everybody bringing in, like you know more than everybody in the room, that'll be scary, actually. Maybe at the beginning for a little while, but you want to be in a place where there's smarter people with you. They believe in your mission and they're there, and you're able to listen to them, hear what they're saying, and then make a decision, right? Because ultimately you're going to have to make the call, or a group of you make a call in terms of what you want to do next, okay? And lastly, be a growth-minded leader. As I said, you're not going to know everything, so learn, right? Half of the stuff I just figured out along the way. Better yet, I go and read a paper, listen to a talk, I listen to a TED talk, I get inspired. I'm like, I don't know how to this thing over here. How do I do it? Well, let me go and learn about it, right? So I continue to do that today. Like I'm always learning things of like legal nature where did I learn that in grad school? No. Right? Postdoc? No. Just the streets, the virtual streets. Okay. And to me, that is where you got to learn. I'll tell you a story. One time, I think I met someone at a conference, and they were running another organization, and they were telling me all these like scary stories about some things that they've forgotten to do. In my mind, I'm like, oh my God, we haven't done that either. You know, we have not done this thing that legally we're supposed to have done, da, da, da. And inside I'm boiling, but outside I'm like, okay, interesting. What else have you not done, right? And so I'm just absorbing. And I go back and iterate. Make sure I fix whatever hasn't been fixed yet. But it's been a crazy journey. You're going to learn a lot as you build this thing. And my hope is that you as a leader, the success of the project really is going to lie on you at the beginning quite heavily. But as you continue to grow, as you bring in new people, you share that load so that if, for example, you have to take a step back, the whole thing doesn't collapse, right? So that has to be by design almost, right? Even now, as I'm looking at SAI, I've been thinking about that for a long time, that if I step back, I would like for this thing to continue growing without my momentum, right? So it's about cultivating the right people and making sure that the structure, the way you've designed it, doesn't necessarily require one person only, especially me, right, to be there all the time. For a while, it will have to be, absolutely. But if you're thinking in perpetuity in the long term, at some point, you're going to have to ask those questions about how do I make this thing go without me in place? It's a very humbling place to get to. So, these are just some random questions I came up with, but I am curious to hear about what you guys thought, like if you general ideas about leadership, of course, but also if you watched Joanne's talk, what are some other things that came out for you that struck out and say like, wow, that's actually really, really important? And these are two questions that we can get to if we have time. What kind of leader do you want to be, right? And what kind of culture do you want to instill, and how will you get there? Because these are These are things that I'm thinking about all the time as I'm thinking about SAI and the culture we're creating, the people you're bringing in. There's some things you're gonna do, like interviewing people. How do you detect like that true raw initiative? It's really hard to teach that, right? Because you want people who take the initiative, and that's really hard to detect. Like I've yet to figure it out a good metric so far. But anyway, those are my quick 2 thoughts. Mandy, Sam, we can have a discussion broadly about this. And what do you guys think?
Do you want to go, Sam, or do you want me to go? I'll start us off. So I really liked what you talked about with like promoting others and promoting others in your organization. And actually something that came up, I don't know, within the last like week or 2, I think I wrote it down. And I had been thinking about this concept of one definition of leadership can be leadership is harnessing the human energy to make effective change. And like, it was very much in line with what she was talking about with promoting others and like really harnessing people and energy and like really empowering them to do what, like, it's not you telling people what to do. And it's not, it's more empowering and harnessing other people's strong suits to make the organization the best it can be.
Yeah. I think that the harnessing part, it is hard.
Yeah.
There's no way. I think I told you guys at the beginning, right? This is hard what you guys are trying to do, right? There are tons of books printed and material, but there's no like, here is what you do, step 1, step 2, step 3. You might do exactly that, it still not work, right? So that servant leadership, I think, is critical, and harnessing their energy to do the things that, like, to do things when they're not told to do, right? Because that's when someone comes, oh my God, Faniel, try this thing. Let me show you. I'm like, whoa, mind blown, right?
Yeah.
They're not sitting there, tell me what to do, when to do it, how to do it. It's really hard to find that kind of person.
And I like the idea of, I don't know if you've read any of Brene Brown's stuff, but she really talks about like making a culture of where it's okay to fail, and like really impactful work and like really innovative and new stuff. Like there really has to be a culture that vulnerability is okay, that failure is okay, that like you're allowing people in your organization to come up with new ideas and like having them have a free space and be able to share like daring and exciting things like, hey, I found this like big grant, it's a little bigger than, we think we might be able to get at this point, but like, let's go after it. Let's do those things. So really having kind of what you were saying with like harnessing people, like how do you do that? How do you get the go-getters and how do you get the people to like really help grow the organization without you telling them to do so?
That's not fair. You stole the thing I was going to talk about, which is what type of culture do you want? I just want a culture of failure. Like that's what I want. I just want I want to create a culture where people fail and where they're okay with it. Like I want to develop a culture where people are just comfortable with the idea that 90% of what they are going to do isn't going to work. And that's partially because like I'm not necessarily thinking of like hiring people or in that sort of. I'm much more thinking of the people who are going to participate in my project, and so these are going to be people who haven't, say, produced a podcast before, haven't, told mathematical stories in this sort of narrative fashion that I hopefully will be able to teach them how to do, and a huge aspect of doing anything creative is just a ton of failure. Like you're not going to do it exactly right from the get-go. That never, ever happens. That's why you have workshops. That's why you have edit sessions. And that is, at least in my experience, not necessarily something that everyone in the mathematical world is especially comfortable with. Because, I mean, it tends to be people who are very high achievers, people who have not been used to the idea that they're not just going to be able to figure it out, and to try to instill that idea that not only are you not going to figure it out, that's actually good. Like, you're going to learn from the really cool ways that you don't figure it out, and you're probably going to learn something even better. Like, you'll probably come up with something better by failing creatively than you will if you actually accomplish the exact thing that you wanted to do. And that's one thing that I didn't exactly hear in the talk, but I mean, this idea between management and leadership. I actually don't think that the best leaders are actually the best managers. I actually think that most of the best managers aren't great leaders. And I think that there's actually a space for both of them. I think that most really well-run organizations that I have dealt with have had both. They've had a really good leader, and then they've had a bunch of really good managers who, like, they're just really good at figuring out how to implement that leader's thing, because the people who, you know, have that blue sky thinking, who come up with these ideas, are driven to vision. Like, it's part of their gift is usually some of those things that they're not great at, that grind part of it.
And I think so. So yeah. You see, like, management as a gateway to a great leader, right? Like, do you need to be? No need to be, but could a good manager have a really great potential to be a great leader, right? Because they understand those components. Essentially, a leader is overseeing a bunch of managers, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's entirely possible. I think that the sun clearly went behind some clouds, and I'm an evil villain. Oh, there I am again. Okay, so, like, I think it's possible. I think people can be both, but I think often, why not? Like, if you are a great leader, instead of learning how to become a functional manager, if that's not in your skill set, I think that it's better to just find a great manager. Like, yeah. And I think that that's part of it. I think that's actually a decent part of management too, is not only, like, give the growth mindset, not only try to instill this great culture, but realize what you're not good at and find the person who's really good at that thing. Don't just look for people like yourself. You're already you. You don't need another one.
Yeah.
Like, know you, right? Also, knowing that's why it's important to know yourself.
Yeah.
I think in this process too, the self-reflection, right? So I want to turn this a little bit to think about your own initiatives, right? Now you're a true villain, Sam, like, true villain. If you think about your own initiatives, right? At this stage, as you're building these things, the tendency is to want to go at it alone, aggressively, and kind of like, yeah, just do this route. I'm curious from your end, how are you thinking about being a leader for your own initiatives, and what kind of things are you doing right now? Do you envision a team, like Sam, you're saying you're going to be training these folks, but what's the administration side of things? Because that's where it's kind of the leadership has to be there, where who is going to be helping you do this, right? And how are you going to instill them, empower them to be their best selves? Because you're going to need them, right?
Well, thankfully, I work in an organization that has things like grant officers that I can, in like, literally inside my unit in a much larger organization that also has grant officers. So there are, at least in the beginning, while I'm getting things off the ground, I will be able to tap into existing infrastructure, while I determine if this can be and will be an ongoing scenario, and I will be able to spend my time, instead of thinking about the administrivia, developing curricula and things like that. And then if it will be ongoing, then I would, want to bring more people on. But at least I have that ability to tap existing resources in an efficient way.
How about you, Mandy?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about this. And last week I did an informational interview with a friend who's a social worker at Boston Children's. So because I'm really trying to focus on the middle school age group, and she works with that population of girls and, eating disorders and all these different things, she was a really great resource. So she agreed to kind of be part of my team but I would really like some other, that was a really great thing. I would really like some other women who are maybe established in their careers to get on board, that could help me with this, like as advisors and mentors. And then also I'll need people on the ground when I'll actually do in-person activities. I've kind of refined my idea this week, and I still have to reach out, but at least I have some contacts to partner with Girls on the Run in Greater Boston. I have like that email, and I have like a plan to, just because accessing middle school girls is challenging, and like where and how and the legal stuff. So I think it would be nice to at least start with an existing organization. So therefore I would also need a team to help come to these events, and I'll figure out some of the logistics with that, as given that they say yes, obviously then I'll have to pivot if they say no, but I would really like some people my age. So I think I've thought about reaching out to, there's like a LinkedIn group for NCAA after the game, so like former student athletes I could reach out to if anyone's in the Boston area. Have some ideas, but like I have friends who are willing to help, but like, it's different with that compared to people who have the experience that I need,
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to my early days. We didn't know what the heck we were trying to do. Let me just be honest with you guys.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't have like SAI telling me the structure. Okay, what's your logic model? Nope, there was no logic model. It's not like I had a logic model. Nope, no logic model. It was, hey, do you want to work on this paper together and write this thing and write this idea and publish it? And then, oh, you want to do it too? Oh, you want to do it too? My God, we should like form a group. Oh, a group should be like an organization instead of a website. And it kept on going and going, right? But I could have perhaps cut maybe half the time to get to where we were. It would probably be less fun. But anyway, I think these are really good questions both of you are asking. Talking with people right now, Mandy, that's the way you do it. You just have those conversations and see it. And Sam, for you, it's great to have the infrastructure that you can tap into. I mean, that is amazing if they're willing to assist in that way, right?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and the university has room schedulers and things like that, and I would be allowed to use existing resources and stuff. So it's one of the nice things about trying to do a sort of longer, more deeply focused, but on a very small group of people sort of idea, than to reach some larger groups. Like reaching the larger groups is the second order like goal, instead of the first order goal. And that helps me a little bit. But I do, now that Mandy has mentioned that, I do have an existing community of some of the current mathematical communicators that I can reach out to and bounce ideas off of as well, and to talk to about curriculum ideas, and like, does this, those sort of like sanity checks, right? Like does this make any sense at least? So I do have a community of people that I can reach out to on those things, so that it's not just me in a fever dream pressure cooker coming up with things and then just exposing people to the weird melange of math storytelling stew that I come up with. In that scenario, that was a really, really tortured metaphor there. I am very, very sorry about that. So yeah, I do have those things, and also I have connections at many of the larger math organizations that I will be able to use for getting the word out and helping on recruiting, because that in many ways could easily be the like actual hardest step of everything. Like, is getting the word to the right group of people, because this really does, like, creating this cohort, creating the group is like, that's my hiring. Like, that's my finding people, is to find the right participants.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be together, and like, they have to be able to vibe in the right way. I'm sure it's a lot of ways, Fanuel, what y'all go through, like having to create these cohorts as well of like,
absolutely. And I think it's like double the problem, right? So for me, I have to think of it from, okay, I need to also think about the team, the administrative team that's going to run this stuff. And then there is, okay, bringing in cohorts of fellows, cohorts of residents, right? And then also our internship program, where I got to think of that too. So I would say for sure, the administrative side of things, like don't wait too like long, don't ignore it. I'll say for all of you, right? Because if that goes haywire, you can't do what you want to do. Like you have to do what you need to do, what you have to do, right? You got to do those things so that you can do what you want to do, right? The curriculum design and like this part here, me being here with you guys is probably the highlight of my week, literally, right? I mean, I'm in teams as well. Meetings are great too. We had a data club yesterday, fantastic, right? Really crazy. But also talking with you guys is a highlight of my week. But I would say the administrative side of things that we're not taught at all, but you can definitely, I think, need to think deeply about, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do the recruitment? How am I going to do the social media? What kind of person do I need to bring in so that I can delegate some things to someone to do, right? What could be my responsibilities so that when it comes to it, when the actual operations of this thing, I feel comfortable. And we haven't yet to touch finance, by the way. I'm going to avoid that until next week. But that is in itself a whole engine that needs to run correctly, and it's pure administration, right? The processing. And Sam, if you have an overhead infrastructure that's managing it, that's great. Mandy, maybe you don't need to worry about those things right now, right?
Yeah.
But eventually, at some point, you're gonna think about it, right?
Sure.
I want you guys to keep these things going as long as possible. That's my take. At least beyond the first year graveyard. There's a massive graveyard that's right in front of you that's coming, right? And so our hope is that the fellows program has shielded you, given you a little boost to say, I'm going to survive the first year, because that's when death happens to most of these things. So the question is, how can you make that happen, right? I think these little things, being a really effective leader, clear mission, communicating effectively, by sheer force, you can get through that first year. And life is going to happen. You're going to get really busy in your other responsibilities. And I just hope this thing doesn't die, right? And so if you think about these things now, I think you can avoid that. Hello. Kushbu, hello. Hopefully she's there. Yeah, perfect. She says hi. What are some other things that are at least questions from all of you, Sam, Mandy, just about this thing? I'm happy to also address if you have questions regarding SAI and how that has sort of materialized, right? Because it was definitely built on the side as a side gig in addition to my full-time role. And so you really need to manage things like hyper management, right? To make sure things are working, but open book.
I have a question of like expectations for the mentors and all the administrative people that you bring on.
Yeah.
Initially, when you're starting, like what's it's everyone's busy with, their day job and everyday life, right? Like how you decide what's reasonable, what's asking too much, what's what's a reasonable time commitment to ask for, and just like setting up expectations going in so that they're clear, but also reasonable. Like, obviously I'm not trying to do anything every day, but yeah.
If you, as long as you articulate what the goal is, what are you trying to do, right? You can get nitty gritty about, okay, I want you to do 3 hours a day, clock everything, right? But then if they don't know what the objective is, that becomes irrelevant. So I find myself re-articulating a lot about what is it what we're trying to do here, so that every little thing we articulate later, they are like, oh, I get it now, right? Why this is important. So you absolutely need to set the expectations. Earlier in SAI, we weren't paying anybody. And I don't know if, you guys are going to start paying people initially, but we're all volunteers. And that was really, really hard, because volunteers, I almost can't tell them anything, right? You can tell them, okay, yes, you're going to volunteer, maybe have like some sort of structure that, okay, volunteering means X, Y, and Z, right? We weren't doing that either, but maybe that's one way to do it. You set the expectations. If you're volunteering, this is the number of expected hours that we want you to do to achieve this goal. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
Very, very important. When you start paying people, that becomes a little bit more flexible. Because right now, for example, with SAI, there are very clear expectations. Okay, you're doing 16 hours a month, okay, to achieve goal X, right? So not that you want to track every hour, no, but that's the overarching sort of goal to get there. And it helps to articulate those on paper, kind of like what we do with you guys with the fellows thing, right? Okay, you need to attend the weekly seminars. Here's a deliverable that we expect you to have at the end of the program. So Sam, I'm sure you probably have something similar with your folk, the actual people are going to go through your program. Because when you have that, I think it's clear then when things go haywire, you can go back to it and say, okay, you're not doing this minimum that we've set. And so this is not working out. And you're gonna find yourself having those tough conversations. Goodness, they will come. Someone is not doing what you hope they will do, that they're supposed to be doing. And then you can have the conversation, and tell them. So setting expectations as early as possible. Especially when there's no money exchanged, it needs to be very clear what that is, right? At that point, you're going to rely on their sheer initiative, sheer passion to give you more hours than are available on their schedule. So hopefully that helps a little bit, but it's been still a growing issue for us just to make sure we're articulating our expectations. No one is full-time at SAI.
Okay.
Yeah, I can say for me, like some of it comes down to this this idea of like, are you sort of hours and like task based, or are you project based? And I've had both, and I will say when it's not full-time work, when I'm not working full-time, and this is for both paid gigs and for not paid gigs, unless it's something where there's like an event where I just have to show up, like some volunteering is just like, show up here, help people fix bikes. Like, okay, I get that. Like, I'm going to be there for 2 hours. I can stay there longer if I want, but I'm there for 2 hours minimum. But for other things, like I've always preferred just project-based. I just want someone to tell me, we need this, like a clearly like spelled out goal. I want you to build a database structure that allows us to store and search this data. And we need it by this date. I'm not going to tell you when to work, not going to tell you how much to work each week. Just, I need this and I need it by then. You can work how you want. And I've always preferred that, but there's some people who don't like that too. Like a lot of it will end up coming down to like what Fernando just said, like say the expectation, say the goal, all of that. Like that is absolutely great. Definitely do that. But each person is going to need a different level of like connection with you to get to that point at the end. And some people are going to want a lot and they're going to want to check in a lot. And some people are just going to never want to hear from you until they have a thing to show. And especially if you're not paying them, you really have to work with them the way they want to work. Like, you can't require too much of them if there's no money.
Yeah, because people, everybody's so different. Everybody's so different. They all have different needs. And I think Sam is totally right. You're going to have to sort of be in the middle there. And one of the notes that Joanne said was that as a leader, you can go the extra mile and be a mentor, right? Be a mentor. Ask them, how can I help you, right? What are the barriers that's stopping you from doing your best work? Is that you need me to articulate things better, to tell you when to do them, how to do them. Some people just need that, as Sam said. I try to avoid those people. Like there's a spectrum.
Yeah, I've definitely been in places where I have needed that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's not a binary thing. It's a spectrum, and it depends, and it's context dependent. Sometimes you just need the one, tell me what to do, how to do it for like a little while until I'm like in a good shape. Right. But you need to be communicating about those things. They're not going to, sometimes they won't tell you, but you need to be asking the right questions so that they can tell you. So it's an iterative process. And I think in all of this, thinking about how you communicate, what platforms are you using? We use Slack, right? And we didn't use Slack at the beginning, but that has just broken down things. Email is maybe it's first round, and after that, I'm like off email, as you guys know. Email is minimal, but that has allowed me to break the communication. Like, no, if someone sends me like a really like 5-paragraph email, it's just hard for me to read it. But a Slack message that's like contained and then another one, that's okay. I can do that. But that's me. But that's why you need to communicate these things. You need to communicate. And I keep repeating that because people don't do it. And when that breaks down internally in an organization, you can't survive.
The one question I wish that I was asked, and it's a question that I'm definitely going to be asking the people I am working with now whenever I'm in any position of power is, do you need me to talk to you less? Because the general assumption of most managers that I've had in my life is not is always, do you need more from me? And so oh, no, I can give you this, I can give you this, I can give you this, and be like, no, really, I just want to focus on my work. Could you please just let me focus on the thing I'm doing instead of needing to respond to you 5 times a day to tell you I don't need that. And sometimes, but just providing the ability for the people that I will work with and the people that you will work with, both for the space of saying, yes, I need more communication from you, but also to give them the space to say, I will let you know when I need something from you. I will trust you to let me know when you need something, or I can continue to reach out if that works better for you. But just, give them that trust that people generally know when they're stuck. And if there is that clear communication that I'm open to reaching out whenever, but I'm also open to not reaching out. I understand both ways. I hope to really let the people I'm working with know that I'm not expecting a specific level of communication from them. I want to work with their communication style.
Exactly right. Another key note that Joanne mentioned, she doesn't use the word feedback as much, right? I think for her, the word is opportunity. She sees the feedback as windows of opportunity to discuss for growth, to iterate, to reiterate, to clarify, the opportunity to clarify. And that changes the whole equation, right? It's suddenly not, oh, I'm giving you constructive feedback or whatever, but opportunity. And I think that's less threatening, more constructive in this design, I think, which I think is really useful. Now, let's talk about, I want to just share some insights here in terms of being just practical about things. I already told you about Slack being very useful. Setting up expectations. I try to meet with our team. So this is the administration team, once a week minimum. So we have group meetings, for example, where we come together, and we have iterated across the months and years we've done this. Actually, this is the first year we just completed. But those meetings are there to come share updates, problems, and then all of us jump together, right, to try to solve them. And they're very short, like stand-up meeting, 30 minutes a week, right? That's like a set time. I also try to set up time and open access hours to meet with them individually. So with Claire, as you know, she's the ADO now, Assistant Director of Operations. For us to be in sync is very critical, right? So we meet at least weekly, and we are in constant communication on Slack. Not over the top, but just enough, right? And I think it would actually it will get less in time, to your point, Sam. As we get more in sync, the communication will be less, because we will know what each other's thinking, right? In any given time. And when you get that, it's really nice. It's a place I work towards getting there. But setting up schedules, right? using platforms like ClickUp. Are you familiar with the platform like ClickUp? So, for us, we want to know what people are working on. It's like big project sticker items. So we have like a symposium every year in the summer. I say every year. We started this past summer as our first one. And so for us, how do you manage that? What is the checklist, for example, that needs to be executed on? But also just keeping track of where things are. I like to know, like, okay, is this being checked on? That way, Sam, I don't need to bug them. Is this done? Are you doing this? Are you doing this? ClickUp is beautiful because all it is like, it's there. There are 3 boxes. It's like in progress. And under, like, I think the second one is like, it's in, someone's working on it, and then completed is the last one. So you can move it along. You can assign people for different boxes and they get pinged automatically. And the beautiful thing about it is Slack is integrated in there as well, which is great. Now, you can definitely overkill it, right? It's like Trello on steroids slightly. But at scale, I think it would be really powerful because you can have different teams use it for their own purposes, right? So for me, being strategic and thinking about these tools that can help just think about these expectations, Mandy, right? Help create those discussion points, right? When we do our weekly meetings, we just go back to our notes, like, okay, what did we say last week? Our action items, 1, 2, 3, where are we with those? Right? Oh, I see here, so-and-so is supposed to have done blah, 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 blah. Where are you? Oh, you're still working on it? Okay, how far along are you? Do you need any help? Someone else jumps in. Oh, I did this, I did that. Done. So these tools, so ClickUp, Trello, you can throw in there if you want. Slack, of course, is a great platform. I think can help in terms of lowering those thresholds, right, for communication, which I think are critical.
My favorite for project management is actually Freedcamp. It's a sort of like a free version of Basecamp. So it's you can go heavy duty, you don't have to. And it has a bunch of free options. And if you have a university, or if you're an academic, they will give you the paid stuff for free too. And so it's the one that I found to work the best for me personally. Like, there's so many different project management tools up there. I don't know if Freedcamp integrates with Slack, but it integrates with a ton of other stuff and allows you to do calendars and do everything that you mentioned ClickUp did. So
right. And then that's the other thing too. There's so many tools, right? I think you have to get in there, try them, and see what works. I just clicked on Freecamp. It looks fantastic, right? You get those Kanban, which is ClickUp basically. That's what it does. The Gantt charts as well. Gantt charts are fantastic just to visualize when things are happening and timelines, right? Everybody can be on the same page. But these are I think these tools, you need to get in there, try them out, see what works for you and your team, right? And the pricing points of these things as well, figuring out some of them are free. If you are in academia, for example, or a nonprofit, right? You kind of need to be asking those questions. And this is a rule of thumb that I do, and you guys can use this too. I always ask if I go, for example, Calendly as a tool, right? That really has freed my time a lot. But I go to them and say, hey, I see that you have this paid version that can do blah, blah, blah. Are there any discounts for nonprofits? That's my first question always. And guess what? Most of the time there is, right? But you need to ask. As a leader, you need to ask. So you need to take that initiative yourself. Don't necessarily wait. Any other tools, Sam or Mandy, that you guys use right now that you want to share? Or have thought about using?
I've taken to spinning up Discord instances instead of Slack instances. But I mean, they're effectively the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's both.
Oh yeah, Miro boards, jam boards. I do like jam boards quite a bit.
Yeah, jam boards are good. Brainstorming, getting things on tow. So this definitely, for those who are watching this later, do check out Freedcamp. And I mentioned earlier, ClickUp is another platform as well. and they're all like in competition with each other, which is great because that way you can see optimizations. Some of them go move further faster than the others. But I love the integration with Slack, with ClickUp, which is really great. But a lot of them nowadays have that integration. And the cool thing about Slack as well, it has its internal like app marketplace, whereby you can like download things that are specifically designed within Slack. So you can do all these project management stuff, time management, all of it as well. So as we come close to the end here, the last point I want to share with you all is in this, as you go forward as a leader, you're going to have to take care of yourself. Okay. I mean, there have been some days where you definitely are pushing some long hours. Okay. Really long hours, and sometimes you don't see any progress. People are being difficult. You get the no for breakfast, no for lunch, no for dinner. And at that point, you got to take care of yourself, stop, set your boundaries, right? I'm very bad, I'll tell you right, I'm very bad at that, the boundaries where, hey, now I should not work on this thing. I should actually go and do something else because it's bad for me to be like this all the time because then I can't see, I have blinders on, right? So don't be tempted, right? It's gonna be very tempting, trust me, that you wanna just work on this thing because it's your baby all the time. No, you're gonna have to take a pause, get some outside perspective. And inevitably, every time I've done that, clarity comes. So I walk a lot, lots. So I put on my headphones, boom, just walk 3-4 hours, miles a day. And that's the time where I can be on the computer, obviously, and I am not on the phone, just listening to some music. Sometimes I just don't even listen to anything. But you got to take care of yourself. So those are my 2 cents there, because the days will come when it is overwhelming. And hopefully you have a good second person that's there that can help you along. My wife has been that. Where it's like, stop working on this thing. Okay. So anyway, questions, thoughts, comments? Alrighty. So next week, as we're now getting closer and closer to closing the program, we're going to get into some of the financing, I believe is next week. And as you go through this week, there's a team slide in your pitch deck that I think you can work on now, okay? If there are people already they've identified, there's a place you can add them. And this slide would actually follow the funding slide, which we'll talk about next week, because ultimately you can't do this thing alone. Or at least if you don't have anybody right now, what's the plan to bring in people, right, for your initiatives and so forth. And then the other item there, let's see, in the curriculum for this week to build on and to work on, think about your SWOT. So you guys, I'm sure you've heard this thing before, SWOT, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You should have a lot of your project now pretty much in, designed, and at least the meat of it is there. So if you haven't filled it out yet, or if you have, review it with your mentor, asking the questions about, okay, I've designed this thing. Where are the holes here? Where are the strengths? Where are the weaknesses? Where are those opportunities? And the constant question is the weaknesses and threats. What's the difference? The threats are something that is outside, external threats, external things that can kill your idea or severely wound it or weaken it. The weaknesses are internal. So maybe a design feature that could be a problem in the future, just inherently in the way you've put it together, right? That I think you need to think deeply about, because if you're aware of these issues now, they'll be less likely to affect you later. And you can design some systems to fight against it, right? You can inoculate yourself now so that it doesn't hurt you later. So with that, I will close today's session. As you know, please, I post all the videos on Slack, and some random notes that I find are all in Slack. So hopefully those are useful to you. And if you find some stuff too, please share it. Sam, I will drop your link for the Freed Camp there as well, and the others. But feel free to add on any other tools, because now we're getting very practical as we head into finance and other things. And the finance one will be super heavy because there's lots of things you can think about as well. All right, so last chance. Any questions? No. All righty, thank you all.